Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's IGB webinar. My name is Robin Harrison, and I'm the B2B editor at Clarion Gaming, and I'm going to be overseeing this session. Today is 2021 Vision, Technology Predictions for the Year Ahead. Now, before I hand over to our excellent moderator and panelists, I'd like to give you some quick background in this session. So each year, IGB polls the industry for its predictions in the coming year. And obviously, considering the year we've just had, this feels especially pertinent and even more so amid, well, an unprecedented expansion of gaming across the US and then regulatory challenges on the rise in Europe. And of course, a kind of a technological shift. We're seeing new kind of solutions and new practices being adopted, which should make for a very interesting discussion. Now, just before I hand over to the panel, a few housekeeping notes. So this session is being recorded, so you will have the opportunity to listen again and share with your colleagues. And we are also taking questions, so if you look in the GoToWebinar browser at the corner of your screen, you'll be able to submit them there. And following the discussion, we're going to run through as many as we can. And now, without any further ado, it's over to the guys. So take it away, Vigne.
Thanks very much, Robin. Good afternoon, everybody. I think the best way to kick this off is just to give a bit of an introduction of ourselves and some background. So starting with myself, my name is Vigne Kozacek. I'm the director of Innovation Squad Limited, which is based out of the UK. I'm IT and security consultant. I've been in the industry, in the gambling industry for in excess of 25 years, worked for companies like Coral Racing many years ago, Camelot, the National Lottery, William Hill, Boyle Sports based over in Ireland, and done various consulting roles in the EMEA, United States and LATAM. And yeah, I work with numerous companies on various arrays of introduction of new technology, mergers and acquisitions around the world. Mattias, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, thank you. My name is Mattias Wedar. I'm the Chief Product and Technology Officer for LeoVegas Mobile Gaming Group. So I oversee the full value chain from product commercials, product management, system development and infrastructure across the group for our portfolio of brands across all our markets. I've been at Leo for about 2 years and in the industry much shorter than you, only about 4.5 years. So I'm a newbie from that sense.
Thanks very much, Mattias. Mohit, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Vigne, and good to be on the panel with you, Mattias, and thanks, Robin, for organizing. I'm the suit and the tie, as per the picture. So I'm a finance guy. I'm a partner at the Clairvest group. We're about a $2.5 billion private equity fund based out of Toronto. Been investing in gaming for about 20 years. I think the number is about 14 different investments over that time. Really all forms of gaming, whether it be a casino, a casino, racetrack, and more recently online and B2C and B2B. And my purview is I head up more the technology investments with respect to gaming and do everything from helping find deals, due diligence, and sitting on boards thereafter. But again, glad to be here and share my thoughts with the group.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Mohit. I suppose to kick things off, can we start off with what would you guys see as your predictions for 2021? And if you could give a bit of background as to why you believe that to be your prediction. Anybody in particular want to go first? Mattias, do you want to start?
Well, I can start off. I mean, I think two things that I would like to mention. I mean, obviously, we're going to see continued regulations happening across the world. Which I think is a good thing because it sort of has an ambition to secure a customer protection and create predictability, both from the operator, both from the customer side. And then I think the other prediction would be that sort of the era of the pandemic has sort of rocket fueled the offline to online transition. We're still in early days, I think. Looking at the global numbers, total online consumption is still fairly low. if you take sort of the global standpoint. And I think 2020 has sort of fast forwarded a couple of years, not only for this industry, but the entire entertainment industry. And I think that will sort of put new requirements on us as an operator and the technology provider from what we actually do from a service perspective and entertainment perspective. So those would be sort of my main takeaways. I think continued regulation and sort of making sure that we capture this rocket fuel change in behavior and customer patterns that we see now accelerate during the end, hopefully, of the pandemic period.
And just to follow up on your first point, especially with relation to regulation, I mean, we've got, I'm sure you guys are probably aware of the regulations that are looking or being proposed in the UK, for example, and specifically referring to affordability checks. But with that in mind, I think the regulators need to take a more active role in engaging with operators to understand the business model a little bit better, rather than the blunt force approach to introduction of regulations, which could potentially have a vastly negative effect on the industry, in my opinion. I mean, with referring to the affordability check specifically, I'm of a strong belief that could potentially drive customers to the grey or black market from the UK's perspective. So, absolutely, I think that's regulation.
I agree. One objective with a strong and correct regulation is to provide a safe sort of place for customers to entertain and be entertained and use our product. And the idea with the regulation should be to create sort of a customer protection safety net. But if you go down the wrong route, as you say, you might end up in decreasing the channelization and thereby boosting the black market. And on that scene, there are no safety nets, there are no taxes being paid. So I agree with you. The regulations needs to be balanced. Can't be sort of blanket approaches, I think. And as an operator can use our data and use our insight in order to provide a more sort of intelligent approach to affordability.
And do you feel the regulators are engaging enough with operators to take that forward, or do you think that they could do with engaging further?
I think we would welcome even more dialogue as an operator. I think it varies a bit across the markets that we are present in, but in general, we are happy to engage in dialogues with regulators, and we do so where that's presented as an opportunity to us. So the more dialogue, the better, I think.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, Mattias. Mohit, do you want to give us your predictions?
Yeah, and it's and to be honest, some overlap with Mattias, but maybe some nuance. And beyond the regulatory point, I very much agree. And I almost think about it, it's a bit of a dichotomy to an extent, depending on where you are in the world, right? If you look at the US, for example, and Vigne, I use this reference with you, but there's an oil expression called blowing and growing. When oil's at $100 a barrel down in Texas, everyone's mining, no one gives a crap, just pay the money. And it feels like that a bit to the US, right? And where's the conversation on regulatory? Like, it's just non-existent out there, right? But you have conversations in the UK and other places in Europe where it is front of mind, and if anything, maybe going too far, and a burgeoning black market, I think, or a black market that's going to get even more interesting. And I fully agree on more engagement with the operator, but a bit of the problem, I think, is the politicians, right? It's an easy headline to do these kind of blunt force things, but you get unintended consequences. So I'm really hoping, because I'm sure Mattias can do all these great analytics to really solve problem gaming and keep the customer safe, but it's not necessarily easy to understand. And maybe we need to do some more work there. That'd be kind of my first point. Second, I would say is, and you see it, just the explosion in M&A. And again, I don't want to be just a finance guy, but I think it does kind of have implications down the path in terms of more consolidation happening. And to be frank, I kind of think about it as an opportunity in a way, because as the mid-sized fish or the smaller fish get eaten up, big companies are not good at everything. So it creates an opportunity, I think, for new fish to come in. and kind of pick off spaces where they're not, or they won't innovate. And then my last point, which ties a little bit to Mattias, but I'm really excited to see, you know, as you're saying, we kind of have this rocket ship with online and frankly closed retail. I'm kind of curious what happens when it comes back, because I think there's some really big learnings that happened during COVID that that I think kind of stuck in. One for me that's kind of front of mind is, at least you see this in North America a lot, but the answer usually for a lot of casinos is they just put more slot machines in. They're very focused on win per day, and I want to grow my revenue by 10%. Let me increase slot machines by 10%. It's very, very backward thinking. And I think they've realized, even if in some places they pull the slot machines by half, because you can only play every other, some of them are doing the same revenue, or if not better. So they're kind of scratching their head a bit. And then they see all these players online. Like, I'm really excited to see, will we actually have, I know it's a, you know, real omnichannel. I know it's a very, very overused term, but I'm really excited to see, will we actually get some more interesting use of the casino floor, actually get some real good online, offline synergy happening. But, you know, that's exciting to me. And of course, can dive into more depth here, but I'm sure we will over the next hour.
Yeah, absolutely. I think very valid points as well. And in relation to the casino floor and potentially the retail outlets from a sports betting perspective, as well as the casino, very much. I think, well, I don't know if it's more a prediction or a hope that this will introduce more innovation in the casino floor and in the shop floor. I think the reduction in the use of cash could potentially produce innovative ways to engage with machines in a retail type environment, and potentially will improve. When I say more innovative games, I think because from a UK perspective, if you look at the typical bookmaker, you've got your loyal customer base, which has been used to coming into the shop, has been going into the shop for many, many years, has conducted their betting in a certain way all of their lives. And some have been very resistant to going online, but have now been forced into a situation where it's like, if I want to have a bet, I've got to jump on a Zoom call to talk to the guy who I usually talk with from the neighborhood and engage in an online bet if that sporting event is actually being broadcast for a start. So, you know, I'm wondering what the impact of that could be, and is it going to introduce more innovation, or do you think people are just going to go back? I mean, the generalization that I've heard is that it takes on average about 6 months to form a habit. Now, with the length of time that we've been in lockdown, I think we could safely say that new habits have potentially been formed. Now, ways of engaging, obviously, safely engaging, is how do you think that may be perceived, or how that will change in the market going forward when we eventually see the new normal that people like to keep talking about?
Yeah, so maybe I'll give a kind of how we're thinking about it, and Mattias, feel free to jump in. So at least in my view, it very much depends on the type of retail experience, right? And I think you see a bit of a difference between Europe and North America. But if it's a kind of a high street betting shop, or something that's kind of less experience oriented, more transaction oriented, I think there were already strong trends moving those bets online. And I think, if it's your Mattias' point, they kind of accelerated. I'm sure there's a curve and a kind of step change. And I think they're going to have to innovate, because I think, you know, people went there and it was a transaction. It wasn't necessarily an experience. With the caveat that we cannot ignore there is a cash element to our business, and people might want to bet in cash and not be traced and, you know, kind of hide that money from wherever else. So I kind of give that point. But on the experience side, which is more to casinos and whatnot, and again, I might be repeating, but there's this famous graph from Las Vegas, which shows, you know, back in the 80s and 90s, it used to be, gaming revenue used to be up here, and non-gaming revenue was here, but it kind of continued to shift over time. And again, I think you're just going to see an acceleration to that, because if someone just wants the game, it's so easy for them to pick up their phone. But if they want a nice social atmosphere, they want a nice experience, this is where they go. So I think you're just going to get an acceleration to that. And I think I'm excited because it's going to make things. They're going to have to make a better experience, and I think it will be interesting. But I'm with you, Vigne. I don't know if it's going to happen right away because they haven't been investing during COVID because they have had no money to invest. But I think it'll slowly come back, and they'll have to innovate to figure it out. But for those operators who weren't forward thinking and just got frankly lazy, that I'm just going to be a transaction engine, I think they might be in a bit of trouble.
Yeah, and Mohit, I think you're 100% right. I think what we'll see online is a stronger, emphasis on entertainment in general. I mean, just look at sort of the live casino side, so the game show, how that sort of segment is growing quickly over the last years. And I think what's still missing out there is the social aspect of the slot world, right, online. What can we do there? How can we use that to attract audiences that are not really considering casino and live casino as their sort of normal, what they search for. So I think the online industry also has a lot to learn from the retail side, specifically this Vegas example that you mentioned, where entertainment now is bigger than actually gaming revenue, right? I mean, what can we do there? Should we have shows on our site? Should we move more into sort of distributing this over TV or making things a bit more social and ability to interact with fellow consumers? So I think there's a whole lot to learn here from the retail side or from the social side of the traditional high street casinos.
Yeah, and maybe just and then one point just to close the loop back is I think that's going to be critical, Mattias, because we're worried about the black market, and I think this is the way to fight back, right? Because if you want the best odds or you want the cheap, no tax, that's where you go. But they won't be able to match this sort of experience and all that sort of thing, right? So I'm totally on that page.
Absolutely. Okay, so for the next question, do you think that artificial intelligence and machine learning will feature prominently in 2021? And if so, how? Mattias, do you want to start?
Well, I mean, absolutely would be my answer. All right. I think, we are already, perceiving ourselves as being very data driven, and that's been sort of a DNA element of LeoVegas since start. And I think the ability to use machine learning and artificial intelligence in our offering, in our services, is going to change the user experience. We can use that to drive a more personalized user experience. Everybody's talking about it, but very few are actually doing it intensively. But also, I think we can use machine learning and AI to sort of create even better RG protection tools to predict patterns and therefore sort of interact with customers who are sort of falling in sort of the risk zone. So I think there's an enormous amount of opportunity here that lies in utilizing machine learning in the right way. And I'm thinking primarily in two areas. One is with the responsible gaming side, but also from a product development perspective, what we can do with personalized user experience. So I think this is going to, I'm not saying it's going to change the industry, but we're going to see a lot more usage of algorithms and that kind of sort of instruments from a service perspective in the next year.
Absolutely, I would agree. And to go back to your point about responsible gaming, I think there's a huge benefit there that I would hope that the regulators would hone in a little bit more on and encourage that development across operators, or even work towards facilitating some sort of a conduit for multiple operators to contribute to utilize that data to better detect and protect players as and when problem gaming is detected. So yeah, absolutely, I would agree. Mohit, do you have any points to make on that?
Yeah, no, I fully agree with Mattias, and it's people use AI, ML. Like if you have a business in gaming or not, and you're not applying this today, like you need to really step up your game. And I would say we even have some outside of gaming, we have some kind of quote unquote boring services businesses, and they're great applications and real low hanging fruit to bring that in. But I would agree. I mean, and again, to use kind of non-gaming references, I think I'm 100% on personalization, right? And you can even open up your favorite delivery food app, or, customized pricing, customized, restaurants coming up. It's kind of table stakes in other industries. And I think gaming has a long way to go. And I'm a big fan of, and again, you see this more in North America, but the fact that people are spending so much on marketing, they really need to refine those offers and think about how to display them, as well as a retention. And there's just so much data there. It's ridiculous how much data is. So I can imagine if you're a data scientist at one of these companies, you're probably salivating, because in other places, other industries, you don't have any data and you're kind of like nitpicking. But a good company should have treasure troves of data of what people are clicking, or what they're viewing, or what they're not. I'm not a data scientist, but I got to imagine it's a treasure trove of opportunity to do so many things. So let's see if 2021 is the year, but I think good operators need to step up their game if they're not already.
And maybe a bit of a side note there, Mohit.
Yeah.
I think also what this allows us to is also to attract a new type of people joining the industry. You're 100% correct, right? I mean, the amount of data, the amount of transaction that this industry generates, I think should allow us to attract new types of talent as well. We can hopefully, specifically in regulated markets, build relationships with universities and the society in more broader terms, to attract these types of talents, AI, data scientists, data engineers, those types of individuals and skill set that are so crucial for us to sort of build the next generation service. Because honestly, today, the casino lobby of operator is kind of the same as the casino lobby as operator Z, right? Massive differentiation.
Yeah, you should totally do it, Mattias. But I mean, I think it's funny, we get on these calls and we like bang on the regulators, but I think we need to be creative on like what are the ways to go around it. And I think a university partnership is one way. And it's not a focus of ours. Maybe it should. But we have a company in India, and they do like cricket predictions, like matches and stuff like that as an engagement tool. And they've partnered with one of the local universities there. And why not? Because they're teaching these data scientist courses, and that would be an incredible project. And that's maybe a good way to get to regulators and change the perception a bit. I think it's a really good idea.
Absolutely. I think also along with that, or to partner that idea, the seeing more operators invest in startup incubators and supporting those incubators in this area to introduce better ways of using this technology to its fullest capability. I'm actually surprised I haven't seen many sports networks partnering with more gaming companies. Not only from you've seen some of it in esports, because as people move from terrestrial TV to more of a streaming based offering, there's the sports broadcast companies potentially partnering with betting companies so that they can produce that interactive or create those interactive experiences when people tune into the football. It starts offering odds on the screen and all of that, and you've got a selection of different operators to potentially place a bet with. So yeah, I think we're heading in that direction where we'll get that. Whether we would actually get to that point by the end of 2021, I don't know. I guess it depends very much on, on the investment and how much longer the lockdown lasts. But
gaming is slow, unfortunately, Vigne. The regulators, gaming is slow for innovation. I wish.
Absolutely. But yeah, we can only dream. Okay, so if you look at the industry as a whole, do you feel that we better prepared for 2021 than we were at this time last year for 2020? Mohit, do you want to go first this time?
Yeah, I mean, I would say just yes. I mean, just even, just logistically, I think all the kind of oh crap moments that happened, call it from March to April on, okay, let's make sure everything can work in the cloud. Let's get everyone home, make sure everyone's safe is kind of done. And if the business already didn't shift their strategy to survive in a COVID world, like you're probably struggling or maybe bankrupt at this point. I mean, I go back to a little bit on, what is online going to be a part of your business or not? And I think, let's see. Hopefully these vaccines work and people get out again. But it's surprising how sometimes I still have conversations with people who are kind of like, okay, we'll just wait, we'll wait, and then we'll open up. And those people, I think, are just frankly missing the message altogether, right? Because it's not even just that, hey, it opens up, but the trend has already moved, right? So it's kind of the two things at once. So I would say generally we are yes, but I'm surprised that there's still some laggards out there. And it's kind of a funny thing in gaming how depending on what niche you are in, you could have just had it easy before because you had a license or you had something else. So they haven't yet been challenged, but I think they will, or they'll get a rude awakening at some point in the near future. But yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree. I think it's also it's potentially opened eyes. I mean, for people in multiple industries, not just this one. And like you say, if they haven't made adjustments to their business model by this stage, yeah, they're probably in for a bit of a rough ride.
Burning through the cash. Yeah.
Absolutely. Mattias, what do you think?
I mean, I agree. I think, I mean, we are 100% digital and have been so from birth. But I think what I foresee in 2021 is also to be able to keep speed and to stay agile. I know it's a lot of sort of, BS wording, but I mean, we need to stay sort of on our toes to adjust to changes in regulation, changes to customer behavior. We don't know exactly what 2021 will look like, and therefore I think speed and ability to adopt and change. I know it's a bit of a jargon words, but I think that is so critical. I mean, we see certain rules opening up or changing in certain markets, and we need to adopt within a matter of weeks, right? So controlling technology, being able to adjust with quality, with speed, and have an organization that can adopt to changes in market circumstances. I think that is crucial. I think 2020 has showed us that, and I think now everyone working from home. I think 2021, at least for the first couple of months here up to the summer, I think it's going to continue down that road. So speed, I think, is going to be even more important in the future.
Absolutely. And if there's anything to go on, watching the latest Super Bowl or trying to seeing the reports coming out of the Super Bowl, performance testing, I think, will be high on a lot of companies' lists, especially that we're not able to take some bets. But yeah, absolutely. Sorry, Mattias, did you, Mohit, did you want to say something?
No, I was just reading some articles about how it's funny how much money I'm sure how many tens of millions they spent on all these commercials and that you can't even play. So I'm sure some people are going to be losing their jobs as a result of this. Let's see.
Yeah, there are some unhappy people there after that. Okay, so with regards to M&A activity, we've touched on it already to some extent, but to dig into that a bit further, do you guys foresee any additional M&A activity going on? Obviously, the William Hill Caesars was the latest one in 2020, towards the end of 2020. Anything else for 2021? Any major surprises, or just continue mergers and acquisitions?
Yeah, maybe I'll give it a shot. It's kind of more up my wheelhouse.
Sure.
So. Yeah, I think 100% there will be continued M&A, and I give a kind of, on top of kind of the normal drivers, let me give kind of 2 reasons why. One, there's these vehicles called SPACs, and they're the buzzword these days, but essentially they're special purpose acquisition corporations. Essentially, it's pools of money that need to acquire. Like their mission in life is to acquire a company, otherwise they're gonna have to give the money back. And I was just checking on the web ahead of time, but in 2020, there were 247 of these vehicles raised, which is more than the previous 5 years combined. So,
wow.
If it's a good signal of a bubble, that's probably one, but you got 247 of these corporations, and they're not all on gaming, but obviously they see the stock prices, and gaming, I'm sure, is on their radar screen for a lot of them. And then the second thing I would say is, and we kind of touched on this, but you have all these, land-based casinos and routes and all these companies that are, maybe they were a bit slow to online, or they're sitting in the boardroom and they're like, oh crap, I need to do something on online. And what's the way to go do that? Obviously, is to acquire. You could try to hire people and build it organically, but that takes time. and it could be kind of a saving grace for a management team who maybe was a bit asleep at the wheel, so to speak. So on top of the normal, reasons for consolidation, whether that be, private equity or, scales, economies of scale with huge compliance costs, all these other things, you got these two drivers. So, and I kind of mentioned it before, I think it's a great time to start a gaming business if you have a good idea, just because I think people will get acquired and it'll create new space for people. And that's the world, right? It'll kind of create new opportunities.
Absolutely. Mattias, do you have anything to add to that?
I mean, not much to add. I think it's likely, as Mohit said, that the wave of consolidation will continue. It comes down to scale and ability to adopt into certain market conditions. So no, not much to add on that point. I think it's very likely to believe that the consolidation wave will continue.
Yeah, and it's maybe maybe just quickly on the compliance, but and Mattias will know this, but as people put these very creative and odd rules in, it is a non-trivial lift, right? And Mattias, I'm sure, pulls his hair out for this, but an unintended consequence of a lot of this over-regulation is, you're kind of stifling entrepreneurs and you're kind of stifling innovation, because it's really tough to do the spins, the seconds, the affordability, like all this garbage that they probably come up with on a napkin in a bar. I don't know how they come up with this stuff.
Sometimes it feels like it, that's for sure.
It does. It really does. yeah, not a lot of. So wow, that's 247 is more than you said. There's more organizations than have worked
previous 5 years
previous
combined.
5 years.
Yes.
Okay, so in short, if we had to say, to answer that question, will we see more M&A activity this year? The answer is going to be a massive capitals yes.
Yes, and unless the public markets fall out, and I'm not making any predictions, I'm not going to sell my account right now. No. I thought it was overvalued 3-6 months ago, but here it continues to grow. So unless there's some kind of big change, I would say yes.
Wow. Yeah, no, that's quite an impressive statistic. That. So with the focus on technology and improvement, so this is an age-old comparison that I've seen throughout the industry, and it's the same across multiple industries, I have no doubt, and you guys have probably come across it, but the constant battle between product improvement, as in customer-facing product improvement, versus enhancements in technology. Where would you say the focus is going to be in 2021? Are organizations going to focus on enhancing their back-end technology, so to speak, or product enhancement?
Or maybe I can start. This is my, if finance was your wheelhouse, Mohit, maybe this is my. The question is not, or the answer is, the answer to that question is we need to do both. You cannot say this year we're going to do customer facing and next year we'll take care of upgrading our PAM or moving to the cloud or implement the next version of React, whatever, we want to go wrapper to native, or you need to do both at the same time at speed, at the same time as balancing sort of changes in the regulatory landscape. It is a fight every day and it's tough. You need talent, you need ability to change and adjust your plans with very short notice. We are trying to reason we like to see ourselves as a technology-driven entertainment company. We do believe in technology innovation, because in that investment you will find new opportunities. You will find opportunities to provide new services using new technology or artificial intelligence, or by changing a coding framework you might be able to deploy things faster and thereby be perceived as a leader. So for us it's a balance. It's hard to say it's a 50-50, 60-40, 80-20. But I think the trick here is to do both, because otherwise you will build technology depth on the one hand, or you will lose competition on the other hand. So that is a fight, and that needs, you need to think about how do you organize yourself, how do you stay agile when it comes to roadmap capacity, how do you change if a competitor launches something or you want to innovate. I think that the trick here is also to think short term and long term, and you can't just spend all your time trying to fight the next day, the next quarter. You also need to think sort of what's behind the curve, and so to put aside sort of time and money for pure sort of R&D, both technology-driven R&D, but also services R&D, and opening up the ecosystem that comes with technology innovations and with regulation, such as open banking and things like that. So there's a whole sort of ecosystem that you need to navigate in. So a long answer, I know, but the short answer is you need to do both.
Yeah, no, I would absolutely agree. I mean, the age-old battle between business and IT in getting that, in maintaining that investment in back-end infrastructure, so to speak, the technology that basically is the vehicle for providing the product, absolutely needs to be maintained, and there can't be an either or. So I would absolutely agree with you. Mohit, have you got anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, no, I would just say maybe it's a good time to be a technologist in gaming. There's a lot of work to do, right? And I'm sure Mattias has these battles, but there's only so many hours in the day and only so much capacity of these technology organizations. And if you're getting with this big integration, this big M&A integration, you're getting with this new compliance, new markets, is there any time left for the rest, right? I was using, run the business versus grow the business. The run the business it could probably fill you up 2 times over, right? So I'm sure people are thinking about scaling their technology organizations, but that's another issue, is innovation might be constrained. There's just no time to do it.
You need to set aside time to do sort of customer face. You're right. I mean, we could spend 24 hours on upgrading or making sure that we are covering all safety nets, but just setting aside time and focus on skilled people to do innovation from a customer facing perspective is important. I mean, what we did at LeoVegas, we combined those, we merged the old CTO and the CPO organization into one, which I'm leading now. For us, the modern way to lead, to it's not either or, it's both, right? So my responsibility today is make sure that when I present the roadmap to the management or to the board, that it's balanced and taking into account regulatory requirements, customer requirements, technology requirements, and making sure that we balance. And some quarters it might be a bit more regulatory development, some quarters it might be only features and customer facing products. But at the end of the day, my job is to find a balance. It's not an easy one, but I think we're doing fine.
Do you block off resources, Mattias, for that sort of work, or I'd be curious, do you organize this certain groups going to be focused on innovation, or do you?
As most company, we try to build a technology and product organization which consists of mini factories. So we have a sports factory, a KYC factory, and then we have wrapping teams that sort of combine this into an holistic customer experience. And what we say to those teams when we do the roadmaps is that we will provide them with sort of, this is what we call must-dos or priority projects. It could be a market expansion, it could be a regulatory requirements that we implement. But then we allow them to sort of, the rest of the capacity, you're free to come up with whatever you think is the right one by talking to customers, country managers, etc. And as long as they provide initiatives that we believe are driving the KPIs in the right direction, they are working with this every day. They should be the experts. As long as the underlying KPIs for that mini factory is trending in the right direction, I'm pretty happy. Obviously we engage in many details and we don't agree on everything, but as a rule, that's how I like to sort of run the ship. So I think also, we're coming into more organizational philosophy here now, but I think, trying to lead with goals rather than sort of you need to build X, Y, Z. If you have a good team, engineer, good product managers that are living and breathing the product, they know what to do. As long as we can see that the KPIs are trending in the right direction, I'm pretty happy.
That's a very, very positive approach. I think amalgamating the head of product and the head of technology into one role, as you've mentioned. I think that's a fantastic approach, and definitely takes away, or I would imagine would take away a significant proportion of the competition that would have existed prior to when those positions were separate.
100%. And then the debate is there between myself and the chief marketing officer or the chief. It will always be a debate, but it's one less interface. And I think for us as a digital company, what is product and what is technology really? There's no clear border there, and taking away this I order, you deliver, because I think that is so old school, right? I mean, we're here to bring value to our customers and thereby generating shareholder value. That's why we're here. But I think the way to do that is to organize yourself into sort of autonomous, self-contained product teams with as little dependency as possible, so you can bring something from idea to deployment without having to ask or need or wait for anything. We have our challenges and we're fighting as well, but I think we have chosen a path to operate that I think is very sort of modern, and which basically comes down to giving responsibility to the organization and steer with sort of KPIs.
Absolutely, yeah, very interesting. I do like that approach for sure. I suppose just one question before we go to questions from the audience to start fielding any questions. So guys, before we move on to the next question, anyone in the audience that would like to pose any questions to us, please fill in the form there and send your question through to us. We'll be happy to answer them. And whilst you're thinking of that and putting them in, what do you guys see as the challenges for 2021 across the board, whether it be regulatory, technology, the industry as a whole, coming out of COVID, if we do actually make it out of COVID? Mohit,
yeah.
do you want to have a go?
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, laughing to your hope, if we get out of COVID, we better get out of COVID, Vigne. I'm gonna go crazy.
Yeah, we need to. It's enough now.
I don't because I would say a lot of it's the same, right? I mean, I think kind of topics we talked about, but I maybe retail is one area that we haven't talked a ton about, but I have conversations there, but it is really tough. Like, it's very tough with planning and risk and all these sort of things. It continues to be challenging. I mean, there's some folks in our portfolio on the retail side who've been open and closed like 3-4 times, right? It's very challenging playing this game of when you should open, not what is the local government saying or not, and how do I think about my own sort of risk tolerance. So that's kind of one huge challenge. And then related to that is, when do I start triggering growth, or how do I think about that, right? And I talked to some machine manufacturers, for example, and it's really tough on them right now, right? Because as I mentioned, half the machines are online. Who in their right mind is ordering, a bunch of great new shiny machines? So that's also very tough on, how do I allocate my people? When do I expect orders to come back? How do I ramp? So, and business is tough, but the inability to plan makes it incredibly tough. So I see the retail environment just being hit with so many different things, and that's not going to stop in 2021.
Absolutely, and then you've got potentially like the loss of footprint. I mean, obviously,
Exactly.
the much larger organizations can potentially withstand the ongoing rents of all the properties that they have spread out across various locations. But the smaller, more independent bookmakers, for example, maybe independent casino or whatever, may struggle with that a little bit more. I mean, it's a massive downturn, isn't it? So how do they cope with the uncertainty of whether they will actually have a retail footprint at the end of this or not?
Yeah, so, will they come back? To your point, Vigne.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So and like I say, I'm really hoping that tends to feed innovation more so than it does. Obviously, nobody wants to see any businesses going under, but yeah. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that, Mattias? Or
no, but I think I think I would say sort of finding a balance here between how to work with regulations, not against it. Also using regulations in a way that can create opportunities for us. I mentioned sort of the way that regulations in a nearby industry around banking that allows us to sort of expand our ecosystem within open banking. That's also when regulation can be very positive for us from a SOI, source of wealth perspective, and making sure that we can provide even better services for our customers. But finding a balance between regulations, increased taxes, and the need to provide an even better entertainment-based customer experience, and at the same time stay on top of sort of the fundamentals, like making sure that conversion funnel works, that the sales funnels is working, finding that balance with 24 hours per day. That is a trick, and it's not about just adding capacity, because I don't think that's the answer at all times. But finding this balance and how to structure your efforts in order to grasp the best opportunities, I think that is the trick for us.
No, absolutely. No, I would agree. Just a quick reminder to anyone in the audience, got any questions that you'd like to ask, now's the time. There's a window available within GoToWebinar where you can type in your question, and we'll see that, and we'll tick through the questions as we go along. And one of the more of a personal interest from my perspective, I have a personal interest in the crypto environment. What would your guys' view be on crypto and gaming? Do you think the adoption is going to be relatively quick? Are we going to see a significant uptick this in 2021, or do you think the market's still a little bit too anxious and is going to wait until it's a little more embedded? Mohit, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't follow the space that closely. Maybe let Mattias handle this one. I don't know if LeoVegas does much there.
I mean, I think crypto is here to stay. I mean, it's part of the future for sure. And the way for us to sort of embrace it is to make sure that it's first and foremost safe, so that we can make sure that we can control the loop, making sure that there's no AML or fraud involved. And then for us, it's also involving taking the discussion with the regulators. Some regulators will not allow crypto yet. Some are opening the door for us to look into it. But first and foremost, I think it's here to stay. It is part of the future. But before sort of embracing it fully out, I think we just need to make sure that we have a safe and secure and AML sort of proof-ready solutions. But it will come, I'm pretty certain. And then it might grow faster in certain markets than in others. But we're here. We need, back to your first question, we need to work with the regulator here, because I think crypto provides not only a good user experience, but it also provides us with even better opportunities to make sure that the funds are where they're coming from, and we can even more secure transfers. So for sure it's here to stay, and it will grow. Whether it happens in 2021 as an explosion, I don't know, but it will definitely be here to stay for the future, I think. Yeah,
I would agree. I think there's a perception there in relation to crypto that it's unsafe, and yet it's actually safer than fiat currency. So I think it's about nailing that perception and encouraging business owners to embrace it and get more engaged and develop it, I suppose.
There's for sure an element of demystifying crypto as well, because it's a lot of buzzwords around it, and so it's, I think it's time for crypto to become a bit of a commodity. But you can start a Revolut account today, right, and start trading yourself in 5 seconds or 5 minutes. So for sure it will come to gambling and gaming as well, I'm certain.
Exactly. Yeah, no, absolutely. All right, well, thanks very much, guys. I think Robin has got a couple of questions that he wants to put forward to us. So, Robin, if you'd like to jump in and fire the questions across.
All right, thanks, Vigne, and thanks, guys. I found that really interesting, and it seems the audience did too. We've got a fair few questions here, so let's just jump into a few of these. So let's start off with, do you feel that innovation needs regulation? Does there need to be a framework within which operators have to kind of innovate and develop their business? I suppose what they're getting at there is, does innovation need kind of managed on that regulatory level?
Should I go first?
Go for it.
I'm not sure that with regards to the question, and maybe it's just a misunderstanding in how the question may have been phrased, but innovation tends to follow regulation anyway because it has to. So people tend to innovate within the regulatory guidelines unless they're introducing something completely new. So, for example, the introduction of crypto into the gaming environment is a completely new concept, and therefore regulation would follow potentially innovative companies introducing the use of crypto in a regulated market, whereas people innovating new products in an existing market would have to follow the regulatory guidelines anyway. So it's that would be my take on it anyway.
Yeah, I would agree, Vigne. I mean, I mean, maybe one place to take this is I would encourage the regulators to maybe, there could be sandboxes they create, there could be competitions, there could be, there's no reason why they maybe couldn't open up some of their data and enable people to create some applications maybe to help with problem gaming. I think just maybe taking that step to enable innovation, to allow it more, rather than just kind of too bad and you got to fall within the rules. There may be some opportunity to kind of encourage things, but it's a good idea. And I'd be wondering, I don't know if there's regulators out there maybe even trying this. I know like New Jersey, for instance, is usually pretty progressive and they're always open for a conversation, but maybe there needs to be kind of maybe some ways to encourage it rather than just being, you got to follow the rule of the law.
Innovative regulation on what's in place already would be fantastic.
I agree, and I think if I can be a bit rude here, I would say that technology is greater than politics. So I think that I think that there's no sort of either or. Again, I think with technology innovation, we can also build better and more prudent regulations, and therefore offering a safer experience, digital sort of environment. I think that is. But sometimes obviously it feels like we're fighting rather than working together to create the optimal arena. But I think with good communication and a dialogue between the regulator and the operator, I think it's reasonable to hope for at least that we can build good things together.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks, guys. And then we have Martin asking about SPACs, so special purpose acquisition companies. I mean, obviously, we've seen like in the past week alone, we saw, Golden Nugget, the land-based business combine, and Play Studios combine, following the likes of Rush Street, DraftKings, Genius Sports, I mean, the list goes on. So Martin's asking, does the panel think there's going to be any more kind of progress? Is this going to keep continuing this kind of like tactic for listing rather than kind of traditional IPO?
Yeah, I mean, I think my answer is yes. I go back to the 247, and I don't know how many are specifically focused on gaming, but there are a lot of them still out there, even though you've mentioned a number of transactions. It was funny, I was actually talking to a CEO this morning, and he was thinking about IPO or SPAC, they were things on his mind. And some of the appeals of a SPAC over an IPO is you can negotiate a lot of things in private. So, with an IPO from day one, you got to get everything out there in these huge documents and everyone's seeing it. But the price, the deal construct can be all in private. So I'm sure a number of companies are having these conversations right now. And then two, a lot of times it's speed too. I mean, an IPO can be very long duration type events, whereas with a SPAC, you can kind of quickly get to market in a public vehicle. So I think there are some negatives as well, which I could talk about with respect to a lot of dilution, perhaps in the shares with the founder shares and all these things, and a lot of uncertainty as well at the end. But I would be surprised if there wasn't going to be more of these transactions in the year to come.
Cool. And then I think we should just have time for one more. So someone's asking about Omnichannel here, and they're asking, does the panel think that Omnichannel has had a chance to work yet? Is it something that, obviously it's been talked a lot about in Europe and it's worked to some extent with the kind of connection between the online and the retail, but do you feel that it's not really had its kind of, it's not realized its full potential yet? And this is something that is going to come for a market such as the US, where there's, perhaps a more kind of impetus for someone who doesn't usually bet in a retail environment to kind of like move between the channels?
Yeah, but I think it's likely to expect, right? If you're a customer and you're on the casino floor and then you want to continue in a digital environment, later on or the following week or the evening or something, I think the customer expectations would be to consume wherever he or she is in whatever device he or she are using, and moving forth and back, mobile, desktop, physical, and being able to continue using the same wallet, using the same money, withdrawing, depositing seamlessly. I think again, I think the era of the pandemic has again rocket fuel expectations. We see patterns moving quicker, faster and faster over to digital, but I think omnichannel, we still need to remember that digital is still in early days when it comes to the gaming industry, and therefore a strong omnichannel approach, if you have a physical presence, I think it's going to be crucial.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. I guess I kind of, two different schools of thought with the US is the regulators are usually pretty stickle. So I don't know if you're going to see as much opportunity for it. And it's also just the weird way in which licenses are given online. Like, there isn't necessarily, there's not a lot of companies who have the retail and online opportunity kind of end to end. But the flip side is, I would say, and it's a trend that we're excited about, is, and Mattias mentioned cashless, but people have been talking about cashless for a decade in retail in the US, but during the pandemics, you actually seen regulators kind of make that step change. So you're actually starting to see cashless kind of rolling out, which is for sure a huge enabler to that. And then you hear some announcements, I think Golden, which is a huge route operator in the US, is starting to roll it out. So I think that's a big enabler, but I'd be cautious as to when we'll actually see this. But in the long term, 100%, again, as much as we like to control expectations, we don't set them, right? You got all these Googles and Facebooks, they put the bar up here, and that's where the customer expects it, and gaming needs to catch up.
I agree.
Yeah, I would agree. I think from an omni-channel perspective, especially with the pandemic and the lockdown of physical locations, we're potentially seeing a slight hiccup in the physical to online consolidation of the omni-channel, so to speak. But into gaming, so between casino and games and sportsbook, there's definitely that opportunity, and hopefully there's been additional development within that space over the last year and for the year to come. But as the physical locations open up again, hopefully soon, we'll see that continuation of development of the omnichannel. Absolutely.
Okay, thanks guys, and that, dear listeners, is all we have time for today, I should say. So first off, thank you, Vigne, Mattias, Mohit, for your time and your insights. It's really appreciated. And I also like to thank Katie Leslie from Clarion's Ops team for setting all this up. And just to finish off, a few housekeeping notes. So the webinar is available to listen on demand. So if you'd like to listen again or share with your colleagues, it will be available on the IGB site. And next week, we should also be publishing the full 2021 predictions, which runs the gamut from technology to land-based social responsibility, regulation and marketing. So there are really, some fantastic insights in there. And finally, of course, thank you to our audience for listening. We very much appreciate your time. We're actually going to be back tomorrow with another forward-looking webinar, this time discussing IGB's annual futures survey. So we hope to see as many of you, or welcome as many of you as possible from 4 p.m. and see you then. That's everything. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye now.